Okay, so good morning. Mic check. Everything's good. How's everyone doing this morning? This is Simon with Trading Perform Coaching. Today is 5/6/2019. We're doing the preview. It's going to be an interesting day, right? NASDAQ's down 170 points or 2%. ES is down about, let's see, can't be far behind. And the 1.7%, down 50 points. And basically that's because Trump said he was going to increase the tariffs on the Chinese, and we've all been through this song and dance, right? So actually what I wanted to cover the most, I've been coaching a lot of guys on integrating the waves into the concept of figuring out a trade. And then last night you'll see on the Slack channel that I wrote right about here. Where did I write this? No, I wrote it. That's right. So this was at, wow, I don't know what time I wrote this. There you go. 8:30 p.m. my time. I said, if CL can hold above 60.16 and not get a negative bar with a point of control below, there are good odds that we can roll up from here. Has to hold there, right? So I want to go through in today's preview, instead of the levels, exactly what it is that I saw. So first, if we go look at the profile chart, right? And we look at that level, this is the 60, there's an anomaly right down here at 60.24 to 60.16. If everyone sees that, before I get too far gone into this really quick, there we go. Oh, don't want to see that. Desktop. Almost forgot this part. Guess I should have more enthusiasm this morning, but it's all the same, isn't it? You're really just looking for the best trade. And I've had one good trade out of really kind of semi-struggling for 2 weeks where I really haven't been able to put it together for a big trade. So I'm glad I got it. But okay, so legal notice, past performance is not indicative of future results. This is for educational purposes only. I'm sharing my trade plan with you in hopes it makes you a better trader, but my style of trading is not for everybody. You can lose a lot of money day trading futures, and it is psychologically and emotionally difficult. We haven't figured that out already. So one step at a time is how I do it, and I guard my downside pretty sharply. Doesn't mean I don't take losses. Just means I guard my downside by stopping trading if I'm not on. And I can give you a long, long list of people who wish they had done the same when they're having a difficult time, because everyone experiences difficult times when they're trading. It is my strongest suggestion to you is that you don't keep pressing on a day where you're having a hard time and things that normally work don't work. Usually pause for 24 hours. Things are a lot better the following day. Okay, so going through this trade, number one, we had an anomaly. That anomaly comes back here from, oh, I've already missed it. It's down here. There it is. That anomaly was the naked point of control, a naked volume point of control from the apparently 28th of March. Okay, so that's what I was working off of, right? It's on a big stretch. It's underneath the last swing by a big stretch, and it was in a panic situation because of the gap down. So that's clue number one, right? And this was the last, that was the top of the, and right below it was the top of the open window at 59.80, which is probably what everyone was gunning for, figuring gap fill down here at 59.40. But as usual, people overreach. Okay, so that's clue number one, right? Then clue number two, so we drag that aside. We know that that's an important area, right? So then clue number two is when we came down, and I'm going to go to my 7 range is what I was working off on this, but it shows up on the 9 range as well, and I'm going to show you both pictures. Okay, so clue number two, while we were down here, here's the 61. Yeah, let's go back to 60. Clue number two. See, this is our last big put, so I'm going to erase this and just draw the whole thing out for y'all again. Okay, this is exactly how I coach it, right? last big push down, right? So I knew I had to get above this point right here originally, right? And I had this little block basically from here to here. I don't know why I can't draw the other way, but that's fine. Why did I do that? So that I don't know why it's drawing backwards, but that's fine. I can fix that too. And draw it from here to here. There. So that was the area that needed to get above originally. That was at 1955 or almost 8 o'clock, right? We then get a 3 across, important, but not as important, right? You get the 3 across and the shift up, but no speed bar, right? Then we come across a little bit further. So see this little tiny wave right here? It looks almost completely inconsequential, right? And it shows up in all markets, okay? But think about it. You get a wave. So there's 2 ways to measure a wave, in width and in depth, right? So this doesn't have much depth to it, but it has a lot of consistency. If you look, this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? We never got above it. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Almost as big. But notice this can even break the minor swing low off to the left. And this bar, the other clue there was this bar right here, right, on almost no delta, broke the low by 1 tick. That is the break of the low by 1 tick on that bar, right? And if you'll notice, the top of this rotation right here is 60-21. Okay, so then I do a mid. And since I'm broadcasting this on YouTube, I don't want to really draw out the last part of this technique. Right, I'll save it for the rim. But long story short, I knew once we got, so the conservative entry on this trade, right, was entry here was choice A. Choice B would have been a backside test of this location, right? And your stop would have gone at the low. So you had 3 choices. You could have entered when it simply closed above. You could have held on for the backside test, right? And your stop would have been below. That's the most basic form of entry at that point. And if you look at the bottom, the MACD is clearly diverging at the lows, right? At the low, if you look. So I don't use MACD a lot, but there's the low, there's the new low, and you can see the divergence off the bottom. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, okay? So if you look just based on that basic entry, and then this is when, if you look, this is 8:30 in the evening, and I say if we can get a point of control above 60-16, okay, which is the red line. I'm going to spread this out here because this is the chart I was working on. I said if I can get a point of control above 60-16, right, that, and then we don't, what did I write? I was very clear on the instructions, right? If we can hold above 60-16, so we'd already gotten above, it was 8:31. I said, and not get a negative bar, a down bar, with a point of control below. There's good odds that we can roll up from here. Has to hold there, right? So here's your bar above 60-16. It's a green bar, right? Excuse me, I stand corrected. It was this bar right here that I was working off of. That's 60-16. I said, there's the green bar above. Here's your speed bar off the bottom, right? That's the algo kicking in. There's your shift up. It was a little bit delayed, but it's Asia, so it's going to be funky like that, right? And there's the bar above, and I simply said if you don't get a red bar below, now notice, here's the red bar, point of control's above. Here's another speed bar, point of control's below, but not on a negative bar, right? And then if you look, there's the takeoff from there. Now, I want to show you the next piece. So that was a minor down wave, and in this series of down waves, this wave right here, this wave with all the arrows on it, that's the last measurable, easily visible location where you can identify a wave down, right? And so the next thing you had to do is you had to get above that, right? We'll color that green so it's easy to spot, right? And so then you can see over here, we get above that last major wave. You can still enter the trade all the way over here, wait for the backside test, right? Now your risk increases a little bit because now you don't want to get underneath the bottom of this wave, which is all the way over, the simplest explanation of that, which is all the way over here, right? You don't want to get underneath 60.16. So it's 60.39. You want to hold above 60.16, right? Again, as this is going up, I'm already starting to scale, right? So I didn't take the whole ride on the whole position because I'm doing what I always do, which is 10, 20, scale off, pay for the trade, right? And then if you look through the course of the night, we don't want to get back below this wave, right? And we don't want, and my stop's at 60.16. So if you'll notice, we backside test numerous times, right? And then this wave becomes our next big wave to push against right here. Notice we still don't have a big up green wave, right? But what you'll notice is we draw out that wave late at night, right? Here's the top of that wave. Notice that we never, on these bars, see how we never get a point of control above. So this wave isn't, quote, activated yet. It does get above the mid, and you could, if you wanted to be aggressive, that's fine, but it never closes above, right? So we roll all the way back. And remember, this wave back over here is what we want to make sure that we hold above, all the way above 60.20, excuse me, above 60.40. We want to hold above the entirety of this wave. You'll see that it comes back, tests the mid of this wave, right? It goes through a long consolidation. Then we finally close above this last wave right here. Again, marked by the algo with a speed bar, shift up, backside test, right? That's 2:42 in the morning. And then we can do the continuation thing, backside test one more time, and then it stretches yet again. Okay, so in the coaching sessions, which most of y'all are coaching with me that are in the RAM, that's exactly what I've laid out, what we're looking for. You had a combination of divergence, right? You had a stretch, you had you had a key location, an anomaly, right? And you got people trapped at the bottom, right? Which is what this is over here. All this selling that came through off the bottom of this rotation, that's what that is. And you can see on the panic, the last piece that has to be done, you see this piece right here? That's the big wave down right there. That's the top of that wave, right? And that actually goes, if you look, that's all one wave, the way it's measured, right? So if you look at that wave, this is the key to get above. This is the bottom of that wave is right here, right? And if we highlight that, or not what I want, let's try this way. That should be resistance when we get up into it. And then if we scan to the right and we watch as it pushes up, there it is into resistance, goes to the mid of that wave, and that's where we currently are at right now, right? And now if I was going to look at it, so now shifting that idea, does anyone have any questions about that? Because that should make perfect sense. That is how you hook up your trades for 100 ticks. So what I did was I scaled. I took 3 scales, left the trailer. I closed out the trailer this morning when I woke up. I think it was 122 ticks that I took off the trailer, right? I just let the stop at break even on the trailer. That's a nice way to start off the day, but I had no idea that it would actually do it. I just thought that it might do it, right? So now when I look at this, right, I'm going to go through and look at the setup here. Number one, right? I'm going to come through and look, and I go, what I need to get underneath now is this wave over here. I'm going to start over. That wave right there becomes very, very important. Okay, so if I restart this whole process here, right, just from a 7 range, I'm going to look at this wave and go, hey, that wave right there, that wave should provide me, in general, support. That's roughly it. Okay, so then on top, this is my last push up, right? See how we keep going and stacking, but this is my last measurable push up right here, right? So I want to know where the bottom of that wave is. Bottom of that wave is right here. Top of the wave is right here. I get a few small waves on top, right? And then what happens is, so remember the trend is up here. I know I'm in general resistance from the prior breakdown. I want to, you'll notice once I get back to the mid of the wave, I get a response. I close underneath the wave, backside test, push, push. Now notice on this push down, right? Now I get new information. Yeah, I know we're open, guys. So, right, new information. This is all we're doing on all the markets anyways. Doesn't matter, right? I know now if I get above a point of control with the green bar, notice they've been very careful not to do it yet. Point of control above 61.54, they're going to probably try to squeeze it again, right? And then this is my last push across right here. right, to the downside. And you'll notice once they get above, they squeezed up again. And now what I'm looking for is either a big push to the upside or another attempt to get below this wave right here, which is my biggest push up off the top to release on a long liquidation below. And you could have said, but Simon, it did close below right here, right? And I did. And then if you'll notice in that wave, it pushed down and you knew your trade was busted if it got above this little push, right? And you'll also notice as it pushed to a new low, you ended up with divergence off the MACD, which I'll be introducing to the room very, very slowly. I'm not a MACD trader. I've hated it till recently, but you'll see the divergence there. And so now what am I looking for at a minimum, right? That's a tiny wave, but I know I need to get underneath 61.23 to get things rolling to the downside, right? And so that is the anatomy of how that trade broke down. Okay, so it's recorded. You can watch it on YouTube. Your next setup, your next big push will come as of now underneath 61.23. Why? It'll get you underneath this last push up. It'll get you back underneath this wave down, right? Both of those, and that should open it up for rotation. And then what's obvious that wants to be tested is this 60.70 to 60.30 area, right? And then underneath 60.30, new ball game, right? So that's CL for the day for right now. Any questions on it? Okay, then let's roll over to plan B. Let's go look at the rest of the market here real quick. So you will see overnight using a 2 range on ES. Again, I'll go show you the bottom from last night, right? Again, I prefer the 2 range. The more I look at it, it's been a little bit easier to figure things out, right? Here's the last big push down right here, okay? This is what will release. Got to combine the levels, which I've already put. That'll is what will set up the release to the upside, right? That's also resistance as long as it holds underneath, okay? And then if you'll look, right, in addition to that, we've pushed up, right, from overnight. So this is our last push up, right? See, I'm just combining them. I'm just making it easy on myself. I'm not stressing myself out, right? I know I've got to get underneath this to roll lower, right? I have to get underneath that. And then secondly, here's my last push right here, here to here, right? So I know I'm underneath this rotation. So I know 2 things off the open. If I don't get above 29.0450, we're probably going to get some kind of press back to the downside. Secondly, if I close underneath this wave, right, 28.97, that opens me up for a retest, right? And a retest of the 50-60 back from the lows from last night. Again, I'm not trading the first half hour. I'll let some other people be the heroes here. That's the 50-60 back. And so that's the other piece that we want to measure and make sure, hey, are we above or below that wave? And eventually it'll stretch out and get underneath. And what would I give priority to? Both is the answer. Underneath here, I expect it to test in the 50-60. And what we really want to do is get away from that 50-60 completely, right? Because you'd expect responsive buyers out of that 50-60 off the low anyways, right? So, and then we put all the other pieces we have, the algo, the speed bar, the shifts, right? We put that all together in key locations and we go, okay, what do we have that we're looking for that would explain how do we trade this, right? And then let's go look at NQ really quick. Again, I've already posted the levels for those who are interested. Here, I'll show you. Yes. So you can see massive gap and plenty of levels above. Here's the overnight trading on this. Okay. So that's overnight. You can see we just missed the anomaly at the bottom, right? We see how we held support initially, right? Flashed through, got above, retraced, pressed again in Asia, got above, back. This is worked as a pretty decent area for support. We haven't quite reached The bottom of this, I may have been a little too perfect with placing those in their location, right? And then you can see this was the mid of a half gap right there where we rejected overnight. And then your clear first resistance area is 29.14 to 29.16, right? So that's what it looks like from a 5-minute perspective, right? The way I prefer to look at it, right, is from this. I needed that chart, so let me find what I did with it. There it is. Really, totally useless. Okay, hold on a second here. There we go. Most frustrating feature. There we go. And then finally NQ. So here's NQ overnight. So there's the gap down, right? Here's the overnight. There we go. Okay, so there's Asia. And you can see we never made it to support below. This has served as resistance. It's 77.23 all night long. It's been a good location to get a short, right? I think these areas down here want to be tested. There's, if you look, we're not that far away from Friday's low, actually. So it wouldn't take much. I mean, 77.80 from 77.17 on NQ can happen pretty damn fast, right? So I'm looking for the same thing here today, right? In addition to the zones, which I already have posted, you should have on your screens, right? What I am looking for, same thing I'm looking for in all of them. Let's change this. Okay, who's this? So number one, all right. So see, this is my last measurable press right up here at the top. See that? This is exactly what I'm looking for, guys. I get underneath that, right? Shift down. That's my trade right there. I'm underneath my last set of buyers, right? I didn't have really any kind of delta divergence. They tried to push. They couldn't do anything with it. I get underneath my last set of buyers. I have a series of push-ups. I get underneath them. That's a pretty trade there. If you're taking that, all right? For me, that's great money. If I can enter underneath this wave, right, and I can take it from 77.03 on the backside test down to 76.70, that's $600 a contract. I'll take that all day long, right? And then you'll see we did it again. Here's the wave down. If we're watching them, right, wave down. Last wave down. Not much return for the amount of effort. Here's the close above. No shift up. So you have to make a decision and no backside test. You just have to make a decision at that point whether you want to take the trade or not. But what it is, it got above the mid and backside tested it really quick. Okay. And then this became the big challenge here, right? So for those of you who go, but what about the big wave right above? Well, you're right. This wave has to be gotten above. Okay. And that's where the art form comes in. But if you look at the bottom, we did have divergence. See how we're pushing into the low? Again, this is how the MACD can help. There's your divergence. There's your last rotation down. There's your close above. That roll, even entering at 7,700, is 7,700 to 7,725, right? It's a really good trade. It's not a kind of good trade. It's a really good trade. You're just going to have to figure out whether we can break this wave or not, right? And my guess is the mid of this wave now, right here. My guess is that's your over under right now. So if we erase all these lines, you're trying to figure out where it's busted. My guess would be right now. So what you want to look at, that 7110, right? So what you want to do to make sure you're not in trouble there. So see how we're pushing up into this anomaly? This has been resistance all night long. getting underneath the 7110 and holding underneath that 50 retrace. Right, so I want to see get underneath here, hold underneath. That would open up for the rotation to the downside. All those pieces have to be put together simultaneously to make everything work. Anyways, I don't have any other piece beyond that, right? That's it. So we're into resistance on NQ. I'm not shorting the open. I'm not overly eager to trade the first 30 minutes on a day where everyone's trying to make it work or not work or whatever it is they're going to do, because I don't understand the politics behind this or how it works. I do understand the waves, right? I do understand support resistance, and I'll trade that as it sets up. So I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to refresh my coffee. I know I want to be underneath that 77.08 and a quarter to see if I can find a further extension to the downside. For those of you who like to short apexes, that's a more challenging setup, but I prefer to already have the pressure coming in underneath. You can see we're already starting to get crosses, but no divergence at the high yet on NQ. So, and we're above that biggest wave down. So that's what we have to get back into in order to make it work. And we don't have any big push up, right? So anyways, that's my 2 cents. Does anyone have any questions? Does that make sense to everybody? Randy, that's pretty much in line with what we talked about in our coaching session. Bill, same thing. And then the other way to gauge that is there's your opening balance right there on NQ, the 2 orange lines. Right here, I'll highlight it. Opening balance. Right, you got to get underneath the opening balance in order to have any downside. Otherwise, you'd expect that to also be a challenge to get through initially, because it usually gets defended first time in, which just creates a lot of noise. So I'm not eager to short this morning. I'm not eager to do anything until I get the setup, actually. So CL is getting divergence up here, right? What I'd have to roll underneath now. See how there's hardly any return for that? I'm interested for my most aggressive entry on a point of control underneath. That area right there, 6160, or I will let them continue to duke it out, right? But you can see clearly we're pushing new highs here. And you can see that. So doesn't mean it has to go down, just means the potential's there, and I'm watching it. So that's how I'll be lining them up all day long, guys. And I will be back in just a minute to start up my trading. Let me make sure all my domes are set here real quick. And I hate to do this. I have to do something here real quick. Okay, that will go over here. This goes over here. No. And so far, potential open drive higher, which should be no shock to anybody. That's been the trade du jour. I'll be back in 2 seconds, guys. So on ES, same deal. Just a constant draw, redraw. Nothing for me to do unless we're underneath this area, right? That's the early warning system getting below this right now. That's your early warning system. There's your divergence up on top. So it's like they did a pretty good job of kicking some people in the nuts who wanted to short right out of the gate, which is good. That's what they're supposed to do. So now we just sit back and let them do the work, right? I'm monitoring CL on the other chart. Anyone have any questions, guys? Or observations? Pretty confident we get set up today. I did not check Forex Factory, but I will. We have 10 a.m. FOMC member Williams speaks. 9 a.m. Central. That's it. Nothing else on the calendar. And you can see we've settled into pretty quiet trading right out of the gate. And then all the other setups work, right? Speed bar, shift down, all that good stuff. I want to be underneath 77.32 before I go to work, at minimum. I know I need to get underneath 77.24 to roll lower. So I'm all right letting them duke it out on top. I don't want to be the one having to fight to figure out whether they're going to turn it or not. It's stressful. Easier just to catch them on the break. And if you turn your attention around from what the PA is doing and where the market's going to just simply watching the setup, life becomes a lot easier. Underneath 71.31, I will look, once I get a point of control underneath, I'll look for a backside test in that area to set up on the short side. Stop will be above 71.41.75 initially. No. Why is it doing that? Down it goes. See, as soon as it got underneath there, it was history. What's this thing doing? I am short 71.32, guys. I will stop that at 71.42. That's the hard stop. If it really gets a point of control above that mid, the trade's in trouble. Right? So I don't want it above 71.41.75, basically. If it does, the trade's stopped anyways. 10 points of risk. Right? really, if it gets a point of control above this, the trade's busted, just so you know. So again, it's the first 30 minutes. It's an aggressive place to trade, and I understand that. It still hasn't traded underneath the wave there, by the way. So there's a couple of challenges to that. So that's the most aggressive entry I could have had, was the backside test of that. Again, it's 10 points. I'm willing to risk that on that trade. And if it continues and continues with an open drive higher, the trade will be busted. The least aggressive is to wait for the point of control to get underneath the wave, right? That's what has to happen. Looks like that's going to get busted. Stopped on that trade. Wow. And that is the risk of trading the first 30 minutes. It's all right. I'll take it again if it gets underneath. Joyce, it's going to be a little bit. I'm not sure what's going on there, but we'll figure it out. But I can't do it right now, which I know you know. That's fine. What are all those alarms? CL's just on a steamroller. There's just no backing down on that. There's not a decent downside rotation there. Again, that 77.20 to 77.75, there's an anomaly right there on NQ. It's held and gotten above now. I missed that when I took that short. ES is pushing into the anomaly at 29.14, 29.16.75. And CL strapped back into Friday's low. So no one seems to particularly care about the China trade war, which is all right. Again, this wave is still the last decent wave up on NQ. What I need to do on this chart. Again, I still think getting underneath 77.32 and holding is the key to making that trade work. 77.32-ish on NQ. On ES, You got to get behind the mid of this wave at minimum. See something here. Yeah. So I put you at 29.01. If I get behind 29.01, buyers still have it. I am willing to go back to bat underneath 77.32 on that trade, just FYI. See how ES rejected out of that 29.14, 29.16? Again, you should have those charts on your chart. See how they're holding that mid? And underneath that, and then underneath that 77.24 is key. So we know they're defending it, right? You can see that they're pushing down against it, right? Now the question is, can we get underneath that whole section they're defending to push lower? That's the entirety of the question. ES isn't even close. So that it's just total buyers control. And CL's not there yet either, although CL's close. I'd say now underneath 29.08 on ES. Otherwise, buyers still have it. And CL, you need to close below 61.70. Then your stop would be at 61.85. And right when you would expect some volatility, you get zero. That sucks. Just remember we have a Fed speaker right now, so. And everyone's been conditioned to buy this thing, so that's the other part of the deal. On CL, a close on a 7-range bar below 61.70. The point of control has to be underneath. I will attempt a short at that location. The point of control has to get underneath. Here, I'll show you what I'm looking at. Right, the stop will go against the high there, the hard stop. Right, and then I'll draw out the numbers that I need to see. It'll look something like this. I don't want a point of control, but the box is so tight, it'll be stopped almost immediately above 61.77. So see how I had the point of control underneath here, right? So I know now I can put my limit at 61.65 for a short sell if it triggers. But see how I didn't get close to triggering? But when it was setting up as a negative bar, I could have simply put my limit underneath 61.65 for the short. So it didn't set up. And then the last thing you want to do is if you're taking that trade, go make sure you take a quick look at the bigger picture and see what awaits you, right? So we're pushing to a new high. We filled the mid of the half gap. There's the gap fill. So it may not be a monster trade. You have to break this swing to the left to get any kind of quote monster trade out of it, right? So make sure you balance that out. And you'll see how carefully they defend those areas. Push up. So I want to make sure that everyone understands. The aggressive trade is shorting underneath the mid of that trade. The less aggressive trade is waiting to get underneath the wave, right? So, and none of them are foolproof, right? All of them have high win rods, but they can stop, and they stop more in the first half hour and in the last hour than they do any other time of the day. CL positive on the day. Wow, that was a great trade last night from the long side. I kicked it apparently a little too early. And there's Daisy chiming in. Daisy, you're about to be put in the back room if you keep that up. Excuse me a second, guys. Daisy, get down here. Daisy. come on. Yes, come here. In. In. Come on. Yeah. There you go. Just relax right here. Sit down. So see how that saves you from outside of the little run over I took on IQ, right? Saves you from getting annihilated. If you don't get it underneath the wave, you're good. Wow, that was almost a 200 tick trade on CL. Lessons learned. The big number right now on on CL. Is all the way back at 61.12, and I would expect there to be buyers at that 61.40 to 61.25 area. Okay, that's off a bigger time frame. Okay, that's the last big wave. You'd have to clear the 61.12 to get any kind of extension to the downside, right? Just using the waves. And then what would get us to a test of that now? You have to get underneath 61.69. So we're nowhere near either one. And if you want to be aggressive on that, it's the mid of whatever this wave ends up being. But we're nowhere close. There's no point even looking at it yet. So it's not short. It's long. Same thing on ES. Same thing on NQ. It's all fine. Go sit down, girl. Go sit down. Go sit down. And if you look at your 5-minute charts, CL, trapping back in, right? Into prior day's high. That thing's just been on a rocket ship, right? And yeah, I know you can look back and go, well, why'd you short it, Simon? But that's what's set up. So I took it, it stopped. I'm all right with that. The RR is insane when you get it right. Open drive higher, higher highs, higher lows, held the anomaly, push. 77.80 is the logical location and Friday's point of control, if anyone cares. Meaning not us, but the market, whether there's an increased trade war or not, everyone's probably become pretty immune. Russell's still lagging. And yes, right into the next resistance point. 29.14, 29.16. Right, still haven't made it above that. So I'm watching that as well. Oh, really? The suckiest feature on that entire deal. Go relax, Daisy. So if you're wondering what I'm doing, the answer is absolutely nothing. I'm not going to try and pick off the high on the trade. I'm just going to wait till it comes in. All right. It gives me my setup. Daisy, go relax. You were barking too much. Go. Shh. Lie down. Lay down. Good girl. Hey, Joyce, I would reboot your computer, see if that works. That's my first thought. Turn off everything and reopen it on that issue. Good girl. Good girl. 61, 67 is pretty important now. I'm not taking an aggressive entry on CL because it's not underneath the wave, right? So underneath the mid is the most aggressive entry, right? So that's the wave right there. This bar closes underneath. I will attempt, they'll give it to me, a short at 61.80, right? And then I needed to get underneath 61.76. I'm hoping for a quick backside test in 61.80, 61.79 for a short. Stop goes at the high. So I have it 77, 78, 78, 79, and 80 for shorts. Hard stop goes at the heart of the day, which is 61.93 plus a tick, so 61.94. Okay. If it gets a point of control behind the 50-60 right here, I'll probably just close it out. Not a bar above, point of control above. Okay, so that trade is in. That's an aggressive entry. The last aggressive entry is to wait to get a point of control underneath this last wave up. Okay. Now I'll probably add on the backside test of that if I get that. This bar has to print underneath that wave. And then I'll take the backside test of that 75 area again. Has to close underneath to print that. Still don't have a down bar underneath that wave. So it's just all show for right now. Three minutes till the top of the hour. Expect algos. Easy, go play. Thank you needs underneath 77.50 to get any kind of reasonable pullback. If you feel like scaling and you took that 77, 78, 80 area, right, you obviously have 10 points in it now. So totally your call, but right, that's a good trade. That point of control is now underneath, right? That's 10 ticks. My plan is to hold that trade and to short into the backside test of this wave, right, and add to it at 61, 75, 74, and 75 specifically. But you can take your dime and roll, right? And then I am hunting as well on CL. I mean on NQ and ES for that matter if it'll set up. So you're going to have to do this on your own desktops depending on the product you're trading because it's a lot of work to do all of them all at once. And you got to keep up with where the biggest waves are. That's what you need underneath 29.1150 to start any kind of roll to the downside. That's the top of that wave. And the start of it would be the mid of the wave. Okay. I'm still short CL. I've got a dime on it right now. I haven't taken the scale yet. And I could live to regret that. So just because I'm not taking a scale doesn't mean you don't take a scale, right? It means you follow your trade plan just like I coach it. Okay. That's what we need underneath there. NQ needs, I'm tracking it on another screen. So we need underneath this wave, but see how big this wave is with almost no return? We get underneath that thing, I am short. There's the top. Notice that that's actually getting selling on positive delta. See that, how it's actually sinking down? We get underneath that now, just color me short. See that? There's not even a mid. It actually went down as we got positive delta push up, right? So if I get underneath 77.54, I will be short with a 10-point stop. Okay. Point of control has to be underneath, and I'm going to try for a backside test of that 77.54. You don't always get it. Okay. You're about to get a close underneath that last wave up on NQ. I mean on CL, sorry. Okay, so I'm watching two things simultaneously here. I'll pull this over, which is about the maximum I can watch. Right. There's the last wave up. This is the last measurable wave up, right? So this has to go right here. See how it's going to slam into this right here? Okay, that's what it has to get underneath. Right, now we should play ping pong. So when we come back over here, we close underneath. I'll short 66.70. Right, I've already shorted 77.78. I'm going to add 66.70. Right, and then I want it to stay underneath the mid of that wave. So I don't want it to close or really trade behind 81. Right, so I'm going to move my stop to like 85 after I get that 61.70 fill. Right, in hopes that it'll hold underneath this 50.60 retrace without getting above and roll back down to the downside. Where's my logical target down? Right now, it's not much. That. Damn, I had to beat that too. They're all stacked on top of each other. And you have to beat that swing low. So we'll just see how it goes. It's not as clean as I want it to be, but close enough for day work. For government work, I guess is what they call that. So 61.70, I am adding to the trade. Adding, not covering, adding. 69 and 70 specifically. Where's my other chart? Close underneath 77.54. I'll be short NQ as well. No fill. That's all right. I'm a patient person. Again, I'm hunting a close below 77.54. I'm going to take a scale at 61.58 on CL. That's 20 cents. Taking half off there. I didn't get the backside test. The aggressive fill is the only thing that came in. And NQ and CL never set it, has not set up short. I mean, excuse me, NQ has not set up short yet. They're trying really hard, but they haven't done it. Place their salts. I will add back at 61.74 if they'll let me. And then Q still needs underneath 77.54 to go anywhere. I am limit 61.74 to short. And NQ is about to trigger. I'll be short 77.51. No, didn't trigger yet. It was close. I'll wait. You can wait for the shift down below that wave too. It's just as valid an entry. You don't have to take the most aggressive entry. It did not trigger. See how it never triggered? They pull it right back up. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. ES2. Usually when you get a formation like this, right? So usually when you get a push like this, see how there's just no return on the delta? Usually you get that at the top, right? So if you look on CL last night, see the same thing. Like that pattern repeats often. So see right at the bottom there, you get this push. See that right there? So you get that push right there. If you highlight that, right, once you get above it, like when you look back a long way, you'll be like, wow, that was it. Like it does that afterwards, right? It just shows that there was a sustained attempt with nothing, right? So if you look where you find that the prior time, it's over here on top. Doesn't show up too often, but when it does, it's like a wide swath with no push. You usually find it right on top. Like that, right there. See that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See that? So it's not immediate. Once you get underneath it, see ya. See that? And you usually find it right on top. So it's worth hunting down. And that's what I just saw on NQ, right? Which is why, let me fix this chart. which is why I'm so interested in shorting it again. Right, so see that right there? That's the whole of that rotation. So see if this bar closes underneath. I'm going to be short. I'll simply close it if it closes back in. Right, but I'll be aggressive on that entry. There's zero question in my mind that that's the right thing to do and the right way to do it. Right, when you get a swath like that, whenever they finally push underneath it, it tends to make a big extension to the downside. Right, so I'm just waiting. Let them come at it. I just need one bar with a point of control underneath and I'll be short. So right now, actually, this would do it right here. So I'll short that 77.50. I'll take it 2 times if I need to. Right, but it generally provides a pretty monster trade. So I'll be short 77.49.75, and then I'll be adding midway through that push. So that's how I'm handling it. You can simply close it. What the hell's the top of this thing? Actually, this. So this is the mid of that. I'm short, guys. 77.49.75. I have 2 ways of handling it. I can either close it here. I'm going to add and close it if it gets above here. I'll add 77.58. Okay, it's my 2 ways of being able to take care of that. That's how I'm taking care of it. Right, so I'm being aggressive on the short. You don't have to. Right, if it closes back above, you just close it out. It's a small stop. Right, it'll end up being about 10 points. Target down. I'll just wait. I'm going to close CL right here, 61.50, closing it out completely. I don't think it's going to roll all the way back down. Watching Q bill as it's setting up, right, for a short side trade. It's a good trade, guys, no matter how you chop that up. I have an order to add to that trade right above 77.57, 77.58 specifically. And I'm added. And if I get stopped, I am all right with that. I don't want the point of control above that. Point of control didn't get above. But I may get smoked on it. It's all right. If they're going to drive it, they'll drive it. There's nothing I can do about it. But they're going to take me. Oh, Enki's a hard short. Still, even in this environment, you would have thought there'd be some give. And that's usually a very good setup. I'll take that again, by the way, underneath. Obviously, CL has a more mechanical function to it. It's easier to trade for the larger swings. Daniel will tell you. That bar closes and I'm pretty much toast. That's behind the 50 of that mid of that wave. And that stops me. And I'm all right with that every time. That's just brutality on the trend day up there. So that's 2 stops, guys, on NQ, right? Hypothetically, at least, right? So keep that in mind. That's really tough when it's just driving in one direction and it gives no roll downs and you expect a change in character in the market, right? So that's where you gauge and go, okay, maybe I've got the read completely wrong here on what they're going to do with NQ, and they're just going to drive it. And this is all bullshit. They're going to just V-shape it all the way back up. It's possible, right? So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. Notice I'm not upset. A, I have a killer trade on CL, not once, but twice, right? B, I am managing my risk really, really well. Okay. I know how much contracts I can put on. And I know that NQ is a harder trade, and we're in trend day up effectively in the S and NQ. So I'll take a pause now until I see it actually rotate, counter rotate down. I don't want to keep getting run over there. That was a good setup. Usually when you get that little push right here and it gets underneath it, it's sayonara time. It just rolls, right? So the fact that it didn't just means it didn't. There's nothing. There's no more meaning to it, right? It's just buyers are in control and they're just going to drive it all the way back up. Daisy, sit down. You were barking too much. That's why you're locked in here with me. Go sit down. If I let you upstairs, if you bark, you're coming right back down. Yeah. Really? Understand we had to keep it underneath this right here, guys, for that trade to work. And ES is just isn't setting up at all. There's no short there. There's no short. If CL now gets above, so the flip side of the CL story now is if it gets above 62, 61.92, probably short squeezes above. And that sucks that we don't have a 2-sided market. I was hoping that would open this up. The one way is a killer, right? It does not help me or benefit me at all in my style of trading. If you need that, it's the same story, right? You buy long off the open, you don't worry about it, and you go to sleep, you kill it. So that's just how it works. Nothing you can do. That's the biggest wave up on the top, by the way. So you get underneath that, you got everyone trapped, but they got to do it first. And they seem to have no intention of doing that. So I'm back on hold with that. I'll see if I can pull out my NQ day. I'm having a killer CL day, just not so much on the NQ. Randy, are you doing all right on CL today, buddy? Late start for you. Okay. Good job. Obviously, the animal spirits are in control. You have algos in 5 minutes. There's the biggest push, right? So two things about the biggest push. Starts here, goes to here. So just start my process over again. Obviously, I'm not going to keep shorting myself into oblivion on this thing, right? So I'll just wait to see if it actually sets up short. Becomes my line in the sand. That's a nice move off the open. Congrats to whoever got that. Look how that set up. See that? Biggest push down. Damn. I'm just going to have to get in even earlier. Above it, backside test, push. All right, now you have the equivalent wave up. See, so over here, you didn't have to bottom guess any of this. All you got to do is wait till you got above here and get long right over here, right? Never even got back underneath the wave. That was 77.24 for 77.74, right, at best. So now, right, underneath this wave sets up the opposite for a retest back down at that location. So I was hoping that the news would actually open us up to two-sided markets on NQ. It's done the opposite, actually. It's just trend day up. So I do terrible on trend day up, obviously. So I'm going to focus most of my efforts on CL for the balance of the day. That's where all my profits are coming from. And above 61.92, I'd expect them to press on CL. And see, they did it over here too. If you look, can you see this? There's the wave. That's the biggest wave down. See that? There's your push above. That's your close above. And they push from 61.68 all the way to almost 62. All right, slow grind it. That's what happens when you get above those big waves and below them, actually. So worth watching. Daniel, what do you see, buddy? I bet he is texting me. The cool thing about this is you don't have to be reactionary, right? Whether it stops you or not, there's nothing to do till it gets underneath another wave or another setup, right? Or into another key location. And the reason I covered on CL, by the way, if you'll keep an eye on the 5-minute chart, we got another above the anomaly, backside tested the anomaly. That support, that's your target up above 62.30. That's the gap fill we came off of right there, but that's really your target. That's the point of control. It makes it good from Friday. It makes a good target up. And clearly, no one thinks CL is going much lower, right? Wasn't exactly a panic sell. So pushes down should be viable if you can get the setup for the target back up. And ES just isn't setting up at all for a short. Just nothing, right? We're not getting underneath anything significant. And look, these are all down pushes with no progress to the downside. See that? Usually leads to a push up. And what we want is this on the lows. So if you look at ES last night. Okay, so this is Panic City, right? Coming into the lows. I'll use a 2-range bar, sorry. Yes. Okay. Here we are coming into the low. Okay. So first, we already know about this, but this was late, right? Or right off the session. But see that big push right there? Okay. Big push, right? I know if I get above that, shorts are screwed underneath, right? Now just watch the right. Above, see ya. So that was this morning. So it became resistance, 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 push. And then you finally got this little push right here, right? That's the top of it. That's the close above. That's the backside test, push. I'll get better at communicating those in the room, right? So now there's the last big push up right there. That's what you have to get underneath if they're going to roll it to the downside, or another one on top, something measurable on top that goes, oh, we're underneath this. Otherwise, this area, this whole thing, will just keep acting as support until broken, right? And probably backside dips into that are going to get bought. So just be aware of that. And I missed it completely, but it's all right. Took me a few days to get everything organized. And I did not take 61.74 this time, and I should have. Shame on me. That's the biggest push off the top, right? So it means two things. A, you need to get underneath that push right there. If they can close with the point of control underneath, they can probably come back down and test this area, right? But secondly, as long as it holds above, buyers are in overall control of that particular situation, right? Here's the mid of that push, last push up, right? You need to get underneath that 77.60 still, right? Still need to get underneath that and hold underneath that in order to get a roll to the downside. And it's worth waiting to get underneath that stuff so that you have the momentum just like we did in CL, right? Thank you on that one, Randy. I appreciate it. Randy's pointing out the 61.75 is the biggest push up in the high of the day in CL, or was the high of the day. And London close is going to be interesting, probably. Good to see all these speed bars on top and get behind them, right? See how it came right down to the mid of that against responsive buyers? It's got to get underneath this to break these guys at a minimum. And it doesn't clearly, with the strength that they're showing this morning, doesn't mean jack, right? Telling you, if you're not underneath 77.58, you're short. It's very challenging here on NQ. Not that there is a short, but if there is a short, that's where it has to start from. and it gets continuously defended until it's not. But the cool thing is you don't have to freaking panic about the whole thing, right? Just let it roll into you one way or the other. We'd actually prefer them just to keep pushing and exhausting it. It doesn't have to roll down here at all. It'd be fine. There's still like a ton of time in the day to set up good longs and shorts. I just figured we'd have a two-way price action. So that's the only piece I got wrong, I think, this morning, was that there'd be any kind of give. That I didn't think it'd be just a straight one-way market, but clearly either the Fed plunge protection team is in, or the other logical conclusion is, well, the prior Fed thing didn't matter, so why does this one? And that's all right with me too. And so I'm 100% on CL, and I am negative 100% on my win rate in NQ today. And on trend day up, that's going to happen. And I don't have it set up on ES yet. I'm watching. But this was the last push down right here, right above it into the anomaly. And you got to get below that now. And we're above it technically. Right, so that was the attempt to break it right there, and it failed. Which would lead me to believe that whoever made that reasonably strong effort, right, is in trouble. And wrong, short is still so freaking wrong on most days on this thing. Again, notice how I'm not fighting it, not upset about it, just gonna let it set up for me. That pink bar there, that speed bar shift up, pink bar, if I got that off the bottom, I'd be so long off of that, it's not even funny. But the inverse is true at the top. It can show exhaustion at the top of a rotation. So keep that in mind as well. And a close underneath there does not bode well, usually. You still need to make it underneath the mid of that last wave up off to the left. We are now above the last big wave down on CL. I would expect it to accelerate to the upside now. Damn. I was hoping they would give it a bigger push down for a long. And I'm glad I covered, and that's exactly why I used the context to cover the CL trade, right? So it's obviously trend day up across the board. Notice that I'm not flustered or fighting it. Let me tell you why I'm not flustered or fighting it. Last night I pulled off over 100 tick trade on CL, right? I know the NQ trades I took were all aggressive, right? I didn't wait to get underneath the waves. When I took backside test of areas that I know when we have a two-side market, I know those trades will pay me, right? But I do not have to sweat that whole transaction. right? I can just let them work out what they need to work out. New wave on CL. Hold on a second here. Neutral on CL. Okay, draw it with me, guys. Box it up. Notice it hasn't closed above that wave. See how they pushed? So here's the old swing high right here. You got 1 point of control above it, right? Here's the mid of the wave. So now you have potential trap. Potential, right? Still need to get them to roll down, and now we need underneath to break. That's the breakaway, right? So just like here, when we got above this, last little push down, they got above it. Here's the next push to the downside. See that? They got a point of control above, right? So if you look on that, they're going to line up. See this? They're going to be almost identical, creating a battle zone. Okay, so we've gotten above, point of control above this down wave. Right here is what I'm talking about. Okay, this is the mid back, right, of this wave. This is the mid back of this wave. Usually they'll try to hold that mid for continuation to the upside. Getting underneath both of those traps these guys, and then getting underneath here now traps buyers and sellers. So what you got to look at, what you got to do is go and look at the bigger time frame on your chart and go, which way is it more likely to go, and what's the context in the market, right? Which way do I want to lay out my cards to win or lose the trade, right? So for me, am I thinking that's a low and we're going to swing up to the other end of the range, which would be 65? Or is that going to, is that the biggest push on top, exhaust it, get underneath, and we're going to roll back and retest 61, right? Which will be a logical place to test, just based on the waves, right? If we can get it, testing this wave down right here at 6160, right? And the bottom of that wave is around 6120. You got to get underneath both of those in order to come back and re-examine. And then if you look, right, don't forget about your bigger picture. Approximate low, approximate high. That's the 50-60 on the day. It would be normal to retest into that area and get a responsive buy. Okay, so we're working all parts of that trade to set up a good trade. And then you lastly use your day time frame, right? So see how they're coming right off the mid there and responding back up. So anyone taking long at 6182, right? They just don't want to see it below 6170, right? And what are they betting on? Push back above a second time above 62 and short squeeze to the up, continued short squeeze to the upside. Okay, hunting Q, which I'm still hunting, maybe incorrectly, right? There's the mid of this push up. See how we came right back in and tested the mid? I could have taken the mid right there for a continuation higher. I didn't, but I could have, right? So I'm obviously off on NQ today, right? I didn't think NQ was going to recover all the way back up, and I certainly didn't think we'd go into trend day up. That would be called being wrong on the read. But the trades and the entries I took were valid trade entries, right? My P&Ls, I'm actually profitable on the day, only thanks to CL. Right? And I'm actually up quite a bit because of how big an extension I had overnight. But I used the context on CL as well to go, hey, clearly buyers have taken control, and whatever fear and panic was gripping Asia has gone away now in the US and European sessions, right? So I've shed my bearish stance there, and all I was looking for on NQ was 10, 20, 30 points down, right? And my read was wrong as to the potential PA. So I can leave that alone. That's not a big deal. I know what I have to get underneath now. So there's no me banging my head trying to figure out what the high is over here. So I'm not even going to entertain short until it's underneath. And I know when it doesn't work, it looks horrific. But when it does work, it works beautifully and huge. I mean, 50 to 100 point rotations are not unusual. And so if you think it's long, you're just looking for a push down and then to get above that push down for the long. I think it's going to go into a two-sided market. but it wouldn't be the first time I was wrong this year on NQ, right? And if you're long CL right now, you do not want it below 61.71. You just don't. The point of control below that is no bueno for that. And we have 7 minutes until London close. Anyone have any other questions about that? Thoughts, comments, ideas? Simon, you're an idiot. I'm all good with all of it. At the end of the day, I'm putting my money on the table to get it right and wrong. So I live and die by what I kill. That's just not short yet at all. So this will get put over here. Bill, do you have a different read, buddy? And clearly what this is immediately signaling is any negative news coming out of Chinese press conference talks is going to get bought, right? So look for those pushes down and look for getting above them. So if you close underneath that last shift up right there, see how this purple bar didn't close underneath? See that series right there? That is generally again, maybe not in this market, but in most markets, that is a damn good setup. Again, here's the top of the last wave. Now established above the top of the last wave. Here's the bottom of the wave. Underneath that thing should be, hypothetically, sayonara, and they're defending the mid of that wave. And ES is just on train tracks, which is fine. I haven't had a short there all day. See how I got above the long, came back to the mid, launched. I should have taken that. It's going to take me a while to integrate. I still suck at buying up. I'm good like last night where we roll down. I'm great at it and finding those terms. But on the continuation trade, I'm still have a very big goal of working on getting those trades. I didn't think I was going to have to worry about it today, but clearly I still have to reinforce my efforts there. See guys how NQ held right back to the mid of that trade? And you should be drawing this right out. All right. See how he held right back to the 50-60 of both those waves to the tick. See that? If they can hold above that speed bar now, bam, in business for a push and continuation back above that 62 for a push to the upside. Right. So it's an area we can look and go, hey, where can I get what will set me up? And now there's your last push down. Right. So now you know you need above that, right? Which is again lining up with this old 92 cents, right? You get above that, push out, trend up back to whatever the old resistance points are up above, right? So those areas are very valuable. I know they failed on NQ today to the short side, and I get that. And that's going to happen in more volatile and violent conditions, but it is a very, very valuable trade. Right? Doesn't always work. And you know, if it gets underneath, it gives you a quick decision point. Hey, I need to stay in, or hey, I need to get the heck out. Right? In the meantime, in CL land, in NQ land, excuse me, you got underneath that those two pink bars up. See how it's fallen off almost immediately? Now it has to get underneath the mid. So if it doesn't get underneath the mid of this, it's nothing. It's just a, hey, how you doing? We're coming back to check up on this is all it is. Right? And that's it. Nothing more to it. So now that it's underneath, now on CL, so I'm going to shift gears on two things at the same time. Right? You have to get the point of control underneath this mid, and now things change up a little bit. Right? On CL. You've got to be able to look at the chart, right? Still, so you just take a quick 5-minute glance at the chart and go, well, where's it actually going, right? And where it's likely going, if it can, it's got to get underneath prior day's low, and back to this 48.27 area is the logical location, right? Which is why you need all your charts up in a particular fashion so that you can manage those trades. Does that make sense? All your charts. I'll say that again, in a particular fashion. So now if I got to close, right, and I wanted to be aggressive on a CL short, right? So first, let's go look at a bigger picture on CL real quick. Let's go look at a 9 range. Just a few ticks bigger. What are we competing with? See that big wave there to the left, right? That's the big mamba right there. We got to get underneath that wave. The mid of that wave, right, is right here. That is your target down, okay? I would not want to press beyond that 61.40 until I got underneath it. If I get underneath it, I have a good chance of that eventually breaking and pushing lower. Okay, next. Here's my last push up on a 9 range. Why is that important? Because it makes it easier to see what the hell this thing is doing. So this last push up, which is what this is, I want to know where the mid of that is because I want to be at least under the mid of that push. So I'm working a higher range chart to get perspective. Again, underneath 61, 69. Okay, now I'm going to go to a little bit smaller range, just tinier to get my trade entries. Notice I can't get my point of control below the mid of this area. If I get below the mid of this area, what am I going to target? If I get below the mid of that area, I'm going to target 6140 to the downside, right? If I can get a roll, that's the key, which is why you go back and you look at, so that 6140 would line up with getting into the anomaly at 6148. It would make sense. But it's got to do each piece first. Notice it's gotten underneath, but not with a negative bar with a point of control underneath, right? So now I shift this over here. I look at NQ, right? And on Q, fudge that program. Whatever the hell it is that does that, I like to beat it. Okay, so I'm going to move this over here. There we go. Okay, so on this 5 range, NQ, last push up, mid of that push. I know I've got to beat it or get another wave that's measurable on top, not a 3 wave. Need a measurable wave to get underneath this to tell me that sellers are present, or all I've got is a bag full of hopes that maybe it'll work out, right? I don't want a bag full of hope that'll maybe it'll work out. I want to get underneath and know that all these people who are buying here are totally effed and they're going to get screwed and rolled to the downside, right? Okay, I'll move that over here. I'm going to reset my 5-minute charts. There we go. Okay. There we go. So now I have perspective from both the 9, the 7, right? 9 range, 7 range, daily time frame, right? And I can make good decisions, right? Notice, even if I got mad about NQ going up, right? Or even if I screwed up the trade, however you want to look at it, right? Even if I screwed up the trade and got stopped 2 times, right? Notice there was no revenge trading. I didn't take stop after stop after stop after stop. I go, oh, trade didn't work, right? Why do I want to keep pressing those trades? Because I'm risking 10 ticks for 30 ticks, 10 points for 30 points, 60 points, right? So my RR is correct. I just got to size it correctly, right? Over here, I know what I'm looking for, right? I don't want to guess. I don't want to guess that NQ is going to break. I mean, CL is going to break. I want to know, hey, get underneath that mid. Otherwise, what's going to happen? They're going to defend. And they play nasty little tricks like getting it just below. You think this is an accident? It's not a freaking accident. They get it just below, go, hey, come on, sell. It's going lower. Panic out. Bam. Thank you very much for participating and take your money away from your day, right? Which I participated in today too in NQ, right? But I knew where, right, when I took those trades, if I go back to the NQ trade, right, and where I took that trade, right, I knew where I was participating, right? I said, okay, get me underneath the biggest pushes. So that was this, right? Get me underneath the mid. So if they take my money over here, that's all right. And I'll show you why. So when I come over here, right, see this final little push up right over here, right? And I look at this, I like this, I like this. First of all, notice that the market actually went down on positive delta in that little move, right? So I'm going to actually measure it in reverse, believe it or not, for an up delta wave. That's a huge clue. If you get a down move into positive delta, just short it or go long at the bottom. It's freaking awesome. It pretty much marks the top. There's the bottom of the wave, right? It's an inverted wave. That is the bottom of that wave. I want to be short that bar right there with that shift. Now look at the reward on the trade. That's an entry at 77.08 for 76.76. I'll take that all day long. That covers a lot of stops. Look at the flip side. There's my biggest push down, 3 in the morning, right? So the mid of that, right, because I'm aggressive. Close above. I want a backside test of that, right? Look at my potential P&L on that trade. Yeah, did I miss the low? I did, but I got a place where I got almost no heat. For the few times that it stops me, I'm all right with that. And as a matter of fact, I could just shorted the backside test of that and taken a quick scalp, but whatever. I wasn't looking for a short at that point, right? So, anyway, that's my 2 cents on that trade. You don't have to be a superhero to make your trading work, right? You just have to go, I got caught on trend day up. Shame on me, right? But I promise you, on the days where it's any kind of balance, any kind of counter rotational move like we had overnight, this stuff pays all night long. And then look at the push on the bottom here, right? So see how that's, Bill, are you in the room still, buddy? Bill? First to Bill. Bill may have stepped away. It's his lunchtime. But Bill was asking me about this, how this is the biggest wave above. Do I want to get long into it? See this right here? Okay, and again, see this right here where you get this signature big push, right, in duration, but no delta on it. So see, as soon as I get above that, that's right here. That's this bar. See ya. It's freaking history. That trade right there, right? You take that trade right there or on the backside test of that, right? That's 7,700 to 7,750. It covers a lot of 10-point stops, right? So I'm totally all right letting those set up for me, right? And you'll become, as you get comfortable with it, specifically to the guys I'm coaching, as you get more comfortable, you'll see, which is why I'm willing to take a short again underneath here. Because what is this going on in here, right? Everyone who's buying in there, if you're establishing a long up here, you only can have one thesis, right? And that's a mirror image move, right? And that's all right. As long as you hold above this, you're kosher. You're good to go, right? Or halal for my Muslim friends, right? But as soon as you get above, as long as you hold above that, your thesis is right. But if you get underneath there, right? If you get underneath there, it's going to roll to the downside, or it has a very good chance of rolling to the downside. And I'm willing to take it again if it does. And that's on all the products, right? And if it's not giving me anything, I'm willing to do nothing. And then, or you can go take it to where Daniel, who's done very good, is he's hunting one thing and one thing in particular, the biggest waves, along with the proper structure to accompany that. But all of that takes work and effort to understand where you are on the chart, right? So, does that make sense, Randy? Good deal. Joyce, you good? Joyce, you have a big week. Joyce's daughter is in Chicago, the play Chicago, and it's coming to Chicago with Christy Brinkley. She's one of the leads in that. So that's very, very cool, Joyce. Congratulations. That's going to be something awesome to see. It didn't make sense, what I said? Joyce, is that a no as to no, I got the Chicago thing wrong, or no, what I said did not make any sense? Didn't make any sense yet? Charts don't update. We got to figure that out. As soon as I take a break here, I'll call you up. Did you close your computers down completely and restart? Yes. I'm going to take the U as a yes. Okay. What the hell could be causing that? Who's your data feed? What's your data feed besides Sierra chart? Who you plugged into? TD Ameritrade. You know I hate those guys. Let me scratch my head. Anyone else in the room using a TD Ameritrade feed for your Sierra charts? I know they're the evil empire, but I'm eating on it for a little bit, Joyce. Guys, I'll be right back down. I'm going to run upstairs real quick and check on my dog. She's been quiet. CL's trying to sneak underneath the mid of that wave, guys. Hasn't done it yet. I'm watching it closely. Watching. We close underneath that. I will attempt a short underneath that 61.65 to the backside test of 61.75, and I don't want a point of control above 61.84. So understand, I'm being aggressive. I have to get underneath this wave, right? There's no other way to candy coat that or sugarcoat that or whatever term we want to use. It's got to get underneath this wave. That's all there is to it, right? So on this close underneath, I'll short a portion. The other half will come back at 71 cents. The stop will be above 84 cents. So the hard stop will be 92 with a stop above 84. That's how I'm working the trade. But first it has to print. Okay. And that's aggressive. If you want to wait till it gets underneath 61.56, that is fine. Right? Nothing wrong with that. $61.64 will trigger me into a short at this point. Okay. And I will add back at 61.71 and 72. Stop above 84. Okay. And I'm looking to break the bottom of the rotation at 61.56. And then press that trade from there if it fills. There's noon lunch. And CL still above the mid of the biggest wave on the push up. So no shock there. I got 64 filled. Okay, now the safer way is to wait till it gets underneath the rotation, guys. No question about it, right? Until then, I'm very aggressive on this entry, right? The safer entry is underneath 61.56. Zero question about it. The other way to do it is to simply put the stop at 61.80, but it's the net the same thing, right? It's difference of $40 a contract. And if you don't like the trade, you're totally fine. You can wait on it. It's not a big deal. Right? Take your normal scales if you don't feel like pressing. I know underneath 61.56, I have a good chance to roll it down. It's the more aggressive entry or the most aggressive entry on the trade. And the base of the wave will often get defended. And all you have to know if you're taking this trade is, A, does it fit in your trade plan? Have you followed your risk parameters for the day, right? And do you understand what you are doing, why you're taking that trade, right? Those are the three things you have to understand to be able to stay consistent. If you don't understand any of those three things, I would get the hell out of the trade right now, right? Because hope is a sucky thing to trade on. Down to the base of the wave, so 61.56 has to go. If it doesn't, they'll just come back up and stop me. And usually someone will defend there the first time. So I expect a backside test of that is what you should know. Sometimes it just falls away, but usually not. I just don't want it back above 61.84. Remember, New York lunch is the choppiest time of day. Yeah, I see that, Randy. That's what I'm trying to get broken. So the safer way to do it is to wait till that base gets broken, right? I'm definitely doing it the more aggressive way, right? They both work. One just is more aggressive, and I'm having a pretty big day on CL, so I can afford to be more aggressive on the trade. If not, you wait till it gets underneath that wave. It shouldn't get back above 61.84 if it's going to break. If it does, it does. And then the trade's wrong, right? And so you can wait. The way you manage that is you go, well, I don't want to short until I'm underneath that wave, right? And that's totally fine too. I'm adding at 70, just keep that in mind. And I've got that ad. Thank you very much. I think. Randy is correct. I want to make sure everyone understands. Getting underneath 61.56 is imperative, or there is no trade here, right? It's just a stop waiting to happen. Want to control underneath that mid. I like to see it just a little bit more than that, like a bar actually underneath, and then a backside test of that area on NQ. On ES, that's the wave that has to be broken, I would say. So remember, I am taking the most, I keep repeating this, I'm taking the most aggressive entry short on a day where most equities are pushing up, right? So you've got to temper your entries, like as Randy was pointing out, below 61.56 is the better entry, right? Back to the mid of that range of that last rotation up. 61.77 is that mid.
So now on NQ, if it doesn't get back above 77.62 and a quarter, right, you got a nice short. If it doesn't get above 77.62 and a on a closing basis. So I was going to push right up against there, see how they try to hold it. As long as they can't get back above here with a point of control back above, right, it'll roll down. If they can't get it underneath or they can't hold it underneath, it'll push back up. And the idea is to get a very low risk to reward entry, right, on those trades for the bigger extension down. That's the key. Is if you don't think there's a big extension coming, for God's sake, don't take the trade. See how it went right to the tick, 77.62 and a quarter and held, right? Now you're looking for it to extend to the downside. And what we're banking on that is that everyone above that level, see how long it consolidated above? That all these buyers from 950 on are all trapped and are going to be forced out of that trade when they thought it was going to go up and be trend day up, right? That's the bet. Now you got to see if the trade executes and holds properly, right? And the laws of nature say when you get underneath all those buyers, they're going to make a heroic effort to hold it, right? And see ya. I'm still pressing on that CL. That mid trade may be too aggressive on days like today, even though it worked out on CL. And remember, we're looking for a push down to get above or push back the other direction, right? I don't think it's going to zero, right? So NQ, I'm totally willing to go long on NQ as well. If I can find the setup. I may get stopped on the CL. Ran it all the way back. They didn't want to break it. And that really sucks, quite frankly, but that's all right. Cannot get a point of control above 8.4 or the trade's over. They're bringing it right back to it. Wow, they squeezed it right to the very top. Let's hope they roll it down from here. Guys, I'll be back in just a second. Everyone knows where my stops are. So guys, on this trade, right, if it prints 61.90, 61.89, the trade will stop. It'll bring a point of control on a positive bar above. All right, so all right, I didn't want a point of control above this point on a positive bar. That will trigger it, right, if that bar closes, which it looks like it wants to. And damn, we just went to a straight up trend day up across the board. So my saving grace was a 100-tick trade overnight, right? And the other two CL trades worked nicely, right? But it's been a frustrating day. I expected to have two-sided price action. Even though I'm still in the trade, I still expected to have more rotation, counter rotation in the morning. Just got it wrong. So that's all right. There is none, right? They're just not backing off on it. Weird, but land of the Fed put, right? So anyways, long story short, right? I'm still in the trade. I'm still hanging on by the hair of my chin, but the close above that 61.84, the POC above, makes that trade toast. So I want to be clear on it with everyone. This trade, right, where I'm not waiting to get below this wave, right, is very aggressive. You shouldn't be following me blindly unless you have P&L to work off of, right? You should be waiting to get underneath. Let me demonstrate, right? So let's go back to a time outside of today. Any wave up on top here. So see how we keep getting the succession of waves on top? This is the last wave right here. What I want is exactly this. Close underneath, right? And fall away, just like that. That's exactly perfect. In this case, if I had been aggressive and wait for the mid, end up shorting this bar. If I'm waiting for the break underneath, I short this. And then you'll notice the backside test of that wave, right, which is the ideal entry, misses just by a tick. But that is the ideal location for that trade. And it usually just gives a fat roll to the downside, right? So not today. And when you get aggressive on it, right? So if you'll look, see how that last push right there? That's the last biggest push down, right? It's not the biggest push. It's just a last big push down, right? And the reason I like to get aggressive on them is because I can wait till I get up here to take the trade, and it worked. But if I take this trade right here, right here, and I add about right here, usually I'm going to get a pretty nice swing to the upside. But even within that, if I wait, I'm going to get a nice swing to the upside just from taking the trade here. That's 59 to 85. It's a good trade, right? I'll take it all day long. And then you change that position by looking for your biggest waves up and down. That's what how you're changing. So see how this is clearly, when you look over a series of days, that's a big fat push down right there. You generally know if you get above that, right? If you get above that push, they're going to push higher. If you get below it, but the other side of that story is they're going to push lower, okay? But when you get above that, they will generally be forced to squeeze in, just like they did right there. See that? They get above it, and you get a squeeze, or they at least reset. When those waves come at the bottom of a rotation, right, or in the process of making the bottom of a rotation, like if you look at this down move here, like if I look at this series of down rotations, and I'm going, okay, what's the biggest push at the bottom? Well, it's either this or it's this, right? They're about in the same place, right? So they're almost equal there. So the first thing you do is you go look to your right. Look at the pushes you get off of it, right? See why I want to be so aggressive? They're 100, 200 tick pushes when they get above. I really want to press. When I get to the mid of those waves, right? So I will be doing that trade again. You have to know what it is you want to do. See, as soon as we get above the mid of that wave, I want to be long because a lot of times it won't retest it off the bottom and off the top, and it will just go. Now, you could have still said, hey, I'm just going to wait till I get above and take the backside test. There's nothing wrong with that. And put a stop behind the 62 retrace. That's fine. There's nothing wrong or unacceptable or horrible about that line of thinking, right? It's just a different way of doing it. That's all. But that's why I want to be aggressive on those trades, And again, you'll see it over here when you're pushing up in the morning, right? See that last wave up right there? Even if I'm just looking for a scalp, right? And I take that wave, again, measure from the base to the top, right? So see, that's the first bar, negative bar that closes behind is this bar. It gives me almost an instant push. And if it's gonna, the problem is that bar came off the low, so you wouldn't be looking short there. But on top, that's what you're looking for, is the opposite of that. You're looking for the big push on top to get underneath and look for a roll to the downside, right? And then what you'll see is you got the two big pushes, right? They couldn't make any progress on the pushes, got above and pushed. I'll give you one more example. I'm going to go to a really big range chart because it's easy to see there. Give it a second to load. Yeah. I'll erase all my drawings. Again, when you add in what you already know about it, right? So I'm going to bring this in so you can see it like this, right? So see up there on top when we start pushing to the high, right? I know on that push up, what really, really, really matters on that push is this wave right up here on the bottom. If I don't get underneath this wave right here, there is no down. As a matter of fact, if I get up, that's such a massive wave, they're going to push behind it, right? So then watch what it does as it gets to the top. This becomes the last up here. This becomes the last big wave up. Not the biggest, not the only, just the last. Okay. See how they, well, you didn't get a chance because it was the Asia gap down, but if you look, see the mid of this? See how it gets consistently defended, which is why getting underneath the bottom of it, it's a high odds trade if you're looking for continuation of the upside. It's a high odds trade if you can tag into that for continuation push to the upside. But if you get behind that, roll to the downside. We just haven't had much roll to the downside lately. But if you look off the tops, right? So same thing over here, right? That's your last huge push up, right? Put a line underneath that. You get underneath that, that's where your push to the downside is going to come. Watch. Gets defended. Underneath. Not yet. There you go. And see ya. That's where the fall away comes from. See that? Okay. See that push on top off the bottom, right? That's going to get defended as well. So what gave you the clue on top of that wave is the question. What gave you the clue on top of that wave that you might get the roll to the downside is what we all want to know, right? All inquiring minds want to know that. So if you look when we get on top, this from my eye, it's a quick scan, right? I go, hey, that's the last big push up, right? And I know that the mid of that should get defended, but it doesn't. As a matter of fact, it slices right through, backside tests and rolls, right? Underneath that wave, right, generates, notice that it chops. And when I say chop, forever. That was like an hour and change sitting there. And then it goes and falls away, right? Comes back up, tests, rejects out of it. And what it starts doing is playing ping pong, right? So this was the last wave on top. This was the biggest wave measurable off the bottom, right? And it had to get underneath this wave, right? As it came down, it had to get underneath that wave to fall away, right? That was the trick it had to pull off. So what you'll see is they defend, they get underneath once, they get underneath twice. Third time does a trick. And what was interesting was that third time, look how big that push was right there at 12 o'clock. Huge push, right? Can't make a new swing high off a giant push. Gets underneath and see ya. That all took place overnight, unfortunately, for most of us. So that's my 2 cents. That's how I would trade it. I'm going to get stopped on this CL trade. And with that, I'm going to go to lunch. So that's okay. I don't mind getting stopped on them as long as I keep getting my huge RR rates, right? And what was the key there? I didn't let it get underneath the wave to begin with, right? So they're going to come back and get me, and I don't have a day where there's any rotation, counter rotation, and that pretty much sucks considering what I expected for today was at least some two-sided price action, and we got trend day up, and trend day up sucks. So anyone have any questions? Bill, Randy, any of you guys? Joyce? We don't get underneath this, there is no short. That's the bottom line, right? And it's failed to get underneath so far. Got behind the mid, and usually that does the trick. And they haven't tagged me yet, but they're damn close to taking it. I'm going to assume the taking is going to happen. Here to here. Actually, I take it back. That bar should have finished my trade right there. So I should already be out of the trade. Shouldn't have gotten back above that. So that's that. Anyways, that's my 2 cents, guys. Anyone have any questions? Mixed day at best. 2 stops in NQ. All right. And that's fine. That one didn't upset me too much. I'm not shocked that it drove it straight up. And I'm hanging on by my hair, the chin, but this bar prints. I have my stop 1 penny above it. So they're going to probably hit it, would be my guess. There's no sellers evident. Unless I get incredibly lucky. That's all right. I'm still way up. I hit it pretty hard out of the park last night. So we see if we pull it off one more time, and I'm still very interested, right, underneath this. And then the big question is, right, when you look at that, what has to go? That, you get underneath that, but it's more likely to be defended than to give it up, right? So anyway, it's my 2 cents, guys. Back later. Guys, I apologize on that last wave chart. That was a 10 range chart I was using for example. It's really big to trade off of. And I've been working off the 7 range. And what I didn't want to see, just to give clarification, right? There's the biggest. So let's draw this again. So it changes based on the bar chart you're using, obviously. That bar technically should have finished me. I had it at 91 cents instead of 80, whatever it was. So it's still possible, but it's above the mid of that wave. So it's got to be underneath. I thought this would seal it right here. and it didn't. So, c'est la vie. I don't know what else to tell you on that. That's been a really extremely disappointing day overall in terms of getting the RR correct and getting the rolls that just didn't release at all. I would have thought there's at least more, like what the market's telling you is there's no volatility still, right? Like when you back this down, right? Like you'd have expected some kind of fear response, and we got it, right? It was just in one fell swoop, but it's done the opposite of what you'd expect to happen. On Friday, we actually opened up a little bit in terms of the rotation size. And today you've done the opposite. You haven't opened up, you've just parked, right? So you need underneath this bar at a minimum, and then you need underneath the wave, to say the least. So I'm not holding my breath at this point.